Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 252 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it's me, Karak with ACG, and that was the most emotive entry you've had. I liked it.
I saw you were like fiddling with something, so part of me was trying to buy time to make sure, I see now you're drinking a little soda.
I did. Yeah. I almost did it, and then I was like, shit, he's going to start.
So I was like, maybe I'll just, bounce the intro a little bit, give him that extra 2 seconds. And it made
the radio voice, the Radio Matty voice. Welcome to Radio Matty.
Karak, I know you're a little sleepy, but otherwise, I hope you're doing well.
Yes, I am.
Good.
Thank you.
You're good.
We also had an amazing D&D game. I want to say thanks to the patrons who showed up for that.
Yeah, you did a patron video on Tabletop Sim, right? I saw that you made one.
Yeah, because we had done a D&D game. We were testing, make sure Discord works. And so for the last couple weeks, Sanctimonious Raccoon has been traveling the world killing ghosts. We were a hard rock band. Hard rock, supernatural, ghost-killing band. It was a blast. It was very fun.
So you're all bards? Is that what I'm getting from this?
No, that's awesome. But well, sort of like that. But yeah, it was just it was sort of like a Supernatural episode, the TV show. But we just drove around, killed ghosts until we all died. Well, it was more to test D&D on Discord and verify it worked. So it's crazy. It's not, we don't normally play that goofy of stuff, but it was like if you test it goofy, then a normal player won't break it. And that's what we were trying to do.
I've only played serious D&D. I've always wondered what goofy D&D is. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I've had goofy moments within a serious D&D session.
Yeah.
Like probably the weirdest thing that's happened is we rolled for penis size one time.
Yeah, right.
But that was kind of like a homebrew, like, oh, this will be a stupid way to solve an issue. But outside of that, I haven't had like the goofy type of session where it's just, I guess you're a rock band or whatever the hell you guys are doing.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to it, most people don't, because if they want to do a long game, comedy runs, it gets short, it stops being fun very quickly. So, we normally don't do this, but it is fun for the one-off, to just go around and try something goofy. And like one of the guys had a guitar that a pope had spilled wine on, and so he believed it was like holy, so he was using like a holy axe to kill ghosts, like just stupid shit. And we were like, let's just do this. Let's pretend. You know what we usually do is we find a TV show and we pattern off of it if we want it jokey. So we patterned off of Supernatural. Supernatural is a somewhat jokey, killing ghosts type of thing. So I think it works for fun, laid back. It was enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. I miss D&D. I've said it like so many times on the podcast, but it's just such a good time. And a nice way to like game without, I don't know how to word it other than game without gaming. Like no screens.
Right.
Right now we don't really have the option. But anyway, welcome to the H.A.M Radio Podcast. This is our weekly gaming show where we just take the highlights from the week. We chat them up and down and everything in between. We hope you're all doing well. As always, we like to make sure you're aware that these shows are funded through Patreon. Karak has one. I have one in particular with mine. You can get early access to this show for just a single $1. You can also get access to more podcasts as well as videos and other posts, as well as being featured in my own videos on my day-to-day channel, just by signing up and depending on what tier you select. So that'll be linked in the description down below. A lot of people have kind of understood the nature of what's happening in the world where creators are also affected. A lot of people have thought we've been unaffected because they're like, well, everyone's watching. And while that is true, the viewership is up. That is true. 100% true, at least in my case. The payout is down, and Karak and I were talking about that a little bit. So that's not to coax you in or anything. It's just to make sure that we're aware of those who are signing up to the Patreon. I've had personally like 20 brand new patrons in the last month, which I really have never seen before. So I'm deeply appreciative to those who have recognized what's happening during these times and taken some of their money and helped keep things afloat here. I know the same thing's been happening with Karak, so we're both just appreciative that you guys are helping cover our backs. Karak, is there anything fun happening over on the Patreon outside of D&D?
You probably don't know this, but so UFC was canceled for a while. And they had a contract to have a certain number of fights, and they were not going to meet it. And it would have caused all kinds of issues. So they started back up, and there's a fight like every 3 days, which is ruthless. And so Yeah, and we do UFC Discord groups. So the last like every 3 days now, it's been like Saturday, Wednesday, then this Saturday is another one. So we do that.
Are
with
they
the
full cards or just?
They're full cards and they're packed cards, dude. Yeah, like the last two have been almost exhausting because you have prelims and then you have main event prelims and then you have the main event. So like one time it was 7 hours where we were in Discord for 7 hours, like people eating, having barbecues, you know, with their webcams so we could see them, and then jumping in, watching the fights. That's probably the main thing. And then just like a lot of side gaming for our Discord. It's you know, I send out the Karak crate, which is a if you're at a high enough level, burn G.I. Joe characters, weird shit that I have around the house. And I've got one of my friends from Germany who's got a picture of a G.I. Joe character in his little wheelchair that I made out of lollipop sticks. We do random shit. I do random stuff, man. I mean, you have shirts and shit, but it's like if you want something crazy, there's like the Karak crate, which is it's been fun to send those out. We did a Lego build.
How many do you how many do you have to make?
Well, it's at a level that it's not super high. It's probably 10 or 15 a month who are at that level. And then I do tell them, I'm like, do you want this? Because like one guy was in Germany and I was like, do you want this? Because it could take a while. They have a VAT is what it's called, where they pay a tax on what they're sent. It's weird. So it's like so it's like I could buy. In fact, I gave somebody an Xbox as a gift and they paid a huge tax on it of like $70. I was all, well, that's not a gift. That's like, I mean, they were happy, right? So, and I do, so 1 or 2 months, I've done 8, you know, but normally somebody will turn it down. They're like, hey, I don't need anything, or the shirts, because I give them whatever is at the lower level. But it's actually half my enjoyment is doing weird shit and being like, oh, you know.
That's a really good idea.
And like doing a rhyme or a riddle. I reviewed somebody's life as like a never touch. I was like, okay, here we go. You know, and I did their graphics. They sent me a picture and I'm like, okay, you know, and I did their graphics, their sound. I had them record their voice and send it to me. And it was just a joke. You know, it wasn't to hammer on them. They wanted it. So yeah, I'm always doing weird shit like that because it makes it fun for me too. It's not just like, here's a shirt, which is cool. But if somebody's a patron for 8 months, Maddie, do you send them 8 shirts? Like that's honestly, you've had the same thing I have. You have a patron for 20 months at the same level. You're like, what do I do to make it special for this person? And so those kind of things are what I've been doing.
Do you buy stuff online and then like package it up for them, or do you just make stuff?
I make stuff, man. It's my.
I mean, even hand-me-downs almost. Like we get sent a lot of like PR stuff sometimes. Like
no, I do that separately. Yeah, I like the box that the you know, fucking Voldemort's editions of games, you know, the premieres.
Yeah.
Those I do separately. I would say most of everything is I make, or write, or draw, or like one patron, I found out he had been a patron for a while, so I went back and got every message he had ever done to me back and forth, and made a fake cryptology puzzle out of it, and I was like, and if he figured it out, it won him a game. Like just, I mean, goofy stuff, you know, because cool. And it's fun to do, you know. It's like that kind of stuff is enjoyable to do. Sometimes it's probably not as good for them. I sent one guy all this crazy shit, and I sent him a centaur mask, and I haven't heard back from him. So he's still a patron, but I haven't heard back. I found a mask, a fucking mask. Oh, that one I did buy. Just so that was like $11, and there was a mask. And I was like, how do you buy a mask that indicates you're a centaur? Because it's a human, right? The only thing in this mask that indicated it was a centaur mask, Maddie, was the picture on the mask. It wasn't even the mask. The mask was just a dude's face with a big devil beard. But who cares? I'm sure he liked it. He hasn't left patron. That was months ago.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Maybe.
He'll always remember that.
He'll remember it all right.
I was gonna say he put you at an arm's distance after that. He was like, all right.
Yeah, he's just like put all patron emails into Gmail spam.
Karak, what have you been playing this week? Any games? Video games specifically?
Yeah, I'm playing Galactic Civilization 3, which is an old 4x game. Just very old, but they still have been. They just did DLC, and it came out today, and they've been around since 2013. I think was the last time this released. So I've been playing a bunch of that, and I really enjoy the shit out of that game. doing a bunch of card games, stuff like that. But video games, I would say Galactic Civ and Tabletop Simulator, just messing around in there if I'm not playing games. That's pretty much it. What about you?
Yeah, so more Persona 5 Royal. I was going to just totally outright skip talking about it this week, but for those who don't know a lot about Persona 5 Royal, it's pretty much the base game of the original Persona 5 with a ton of quality of life improvements, redone social links in some aspects, new characters, some restructured dungeons in some areas. So there's a lot of new content to keep that base game afloat and make it feel fresh. But now I'm in the part of the game called the third semester, which is you finished the base game and now this whole new section of the story has opened up. And I will not spoil anything for anybody, but I will just say this. There is, Persona, as you know, it goes on a stretch of days. Like, it's January 1st, January 2nd, January 3rd. January 1st through the 9th arguably is, like, number one, the best stretch so far of the entire game itself, which, it wipes all the amazing moments of the original game. It wipes its ass with them. Like, it's that insanely good. It is the first time that in a I can't even remember where a modern game has me feeling like I did when I played a game on a PS2, where like that childhood wonder of what else can this game do. Like, it keeps getting bigger, like story wise, gameplay wise, like it just does everything, and it's like, oh my god, it's doing this too. Like, it was one of those moments where it really captured me in a specific, unique way that even some of my favorite games of all time, like we'll say Nier Automata, BioShock, these are more modern games, like they caught me in a certain way, but it was because like I really liked them. But like Persona 5 Royal has sort of transcended from like, this is one of the best games I've played to like, this is an experience. And for me, that was really solidified when I entered this third semester, and the game just flips you on its head, and in a very intelligent way, playing off everything that's happened beforehand, while trusting the player's knowledge and pacing it properly. I like I said, I wasn't planning on talking about it again because I was like, yep, another week, more Persona 5 Royal. But it was like I had this moment in the game where I was like, this is... Have you ever played a game and you're sitting there, something's happening, and you're like, this is going to be one of the best moments I've had in a game my entire life? Like,
oh, yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
Special. I had that. And it was like this otherworldly feeling. You're like, oh my God, like I am playing this. Like, I am living through this. This is crazy. And so sadly, I don't want to get into specifics just because like I think it's very important to experience, but I've raved about the game a ton, and it kind of just got amplified. Like, it absolutely springboarded the game, where I had like an utmost respect for Persona 5, but I always liked 4 more because of its cast, because of its characters, and how I feel like they were very human. And this, not that they weren't humanized in Persona 5, but this event just humanizes the whole group in a new light that's very creative and poses like a whole new thought process for the narrative. It's crazy. It is crazy.
Is the girl that the new character, which I think Reg said is girl. Yeah. So she's the sporty one. Is she like a sport?
Yeah, she's a gymnast. Yeah.
But that's hot. Is she is she fully immersed in the title from he said it was like only an hour or so from when you start where you meet her. So is she like, can you tell she isn't a part of the main, is I guess what my question is. Can you tell she's new is what I mean.
I don't think you can. And the reason I say that is because they kind of, it's one of my complaints with the game, but it may change. But right now it's that they backseat her a lot. She interweaves in and out.
I got you.
She's there. She has a presence. You have a relationship with her. She has her own social link, like any character that's major in Persona, and she's very interesting. But I very much wanted her to be involved in some of the major events that the Phantom Thieves go through. And she is in her own way, but it's not as, say, like An or Ryuji, like the main characters who are there through it all. Like, they're constantly there. She's not like that. And it's explained why, and it makes sense why. And it kind of builds her up as to why. But that's the one thing that's really unfortunate is I clocked almost my 130th hour, and now the game's starting to pivot and give her look. And I think it will be to this semester's benefit, but it is one of my complaints that like I think backseated might be strong, but she's sort of in and out of the picture a little too much. I would want her in a little bit more. But in answer to your question, they definitely, I think, weaved her in a very natural way, which I trusted Atlas was going to be good with, because I played Catherine Full Body last year for the first time, and they added a new character called Rin. And I thought Rin was a part of the base game. They did it so well.
Okay.
So I had that experience to back it up. Like, okay, I know what happens when you play a game that's been re-released for the first time, and they've added something very new and substantial, and it's your first time going through it. But yeah, just kind of took my words away, and it's really hard to describe how magical my session on Persona 5 Royal was last night. It was
I haven't heard
incredible.
anybody complain about it either, because Reg has played 140 normal or whatever hours, and then played this. His only complaint was that there was one very particular thing you have to do to get the extra content at the end or something like that.
You can miss it.
Yeah, and he said it's not like a bunch of people will miss it, but he's like, it is a requirement, and so that you then have the chance to miss it. Like, it is the chance is there. And it wasn't even a hate. It was just like, that's sort of a dumb decision overall. But yeah, man, it's like there's been nobody complaining about that game, even though it really, like, if this was another company, it feels like people would complain more, just because it's like, oh, well, it's just adding this or that, but instead, like, nobody dislikes it.
At first, it was that. I remember when it first released, or I'm sorry, it was first announced, a lot of people were saying just sell it for $30 or sell the expansion for $30. But once you play it and you realize to get to this third semester and what's happening, you have to build relationships and see certain moments that are brand new, by the way, with these new characters to kind of hint at what's to come. Like, if they just dropped it in and said, okay, you've got a new downloadable content for Persona 5, the base game. Royal we'll call it Royal. Royal's been added in. If you just started off cold turkey with what's happening with third semester, it would not be good. It just wouldn't. It's because of the way you build relationships with some of the new characters and what happens in turn, that makes it that moment that I had where you're just like, oh, Jesus Christ, like, this is insane. So that's why, like, when I hear people go like, oh, they should have sold it as DLC, I'm like, you just didn't play the game. That's it. It's that simple. And the second you do, and anyone who does play it, like, within the first like 2 hours, you just know, like, oh, they couldn't have just made it downloadable content. They simply couldn't have. So it's just, I don't know how else to word it. It's like one of the best games ever, man. It is incredible, because P5 was already very good. And I don't want to sound hyperbolic. I genuinely will back it up that I think this game is one of the best games ever made. It is incredible, because like I said, it's that bigger thing where it just, as you go through the game, it's like, oh, they got these mini games. Oh my God, the combat, another layer, the confidants, the story, this, that, the choices, the permutations, all the personas in the game, the fusion combinations. Like, it's just, it's all there. It's insane. It is actually insane. I can't get over it. Yeah. Highly recommend it to anyone who's listening. Even if you've never played Persona before, you don't need to play it to understand or enjoy Royal whatsoever.
Yeah, you definitely don't need to. I mean, as somebody who hasn't followed Persona that much, I had a fucking amazing time with the non-Royal version.
Yeah, I remember you reviewed that. You reviewed that in like a week or two, right? I remember you had that game.
Yeah,
early,
that was that was one of the first ones where I played. I did the full 24 hours the very first day I got it, because I bought that off the street.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think you bought that.
You have to with that game. I was going to.
You were going to? Okay, yeah. Yeah, and I don't even remember if they even sent codes to me on that one, but I got it off the street, and luckily, because it was like, can't remember what day it was, but it was multiple days, and it wasn't even that many days to basically get it ready, even off the street. Because a lot of times off the street, you can get it 2 weeks early, just depending. Witcher 3, by the way, I don't know if you knew this. I didn't. one of my friends from the Middle East, who's a part of my Discord, told me that I think it was Witcher 3, he was seeing Witcher 3 on the street corner shops like fucking almost a month early. It was crazy. Wow. Yeah, it was crazy. He was like, dude, it was already there. You know, probably unpatched, obviously, but there.
But still, that's yeah. I remember that Persona 5, the original, was like available on eBay a couple weeks early. Like that's
because
you could find it there.
You and English I have talked about a couple of those. Yeah, dude, it's nuts. The one thing I have looked for everywhere in all different, even dark web, was I wanted the US version of the Yakuza, the new one. Which it's not out yet. Yeah, just because I really want to play that game. And I was watching like him summon lobsters and shit, and I was like, oh my god, I just want to play
They definitely took notes from Persona with that game, like the way the combat set up in the HUD.
Very much
it's so clear, which is a good thing. Yeah, it's very reminiscent of that, and because it's Sega published, that probably makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we're playing. That's what we've been up to. Karak, let's get into the news this week. Let's start off with the Mafia Trilogy. So this was kind of being teased throughout the week by 2K. The Mafia account on Twitter reactivated, and they were tweeting like power, family, respect, day in, day out since I think it was Mother's Day. And once all three of those tweets were sent out, they then announced the Mafia Trilogy. So let's go ahead and we're going to zip through an article from Eurogamer. 2K's trilogy of Mafia games are getting a re-release with a package called, fittingly, Mafia Trilogy. Today's brief teaser doesn't tell us much other than the trilogy's new platform, PC, via Steam, and the Epic Game Store. We don't know the timing on that quite yet because we do know 2K has been partial to the Epic Game Store in the past, but we'll see. PS4, Xbox One, and Stadia, and to expect more details on Tuesday, May 19th. It does fit with Mafia 2's recent appearance on ratings boards. Also, there was, I'll add in this, a appearance of a Mafia 3 Definitive Edition on ratings boards. Now, furthermore, there was a very interesting update for this, saying that Mafia 2's new version could arrive as soon as next week. Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, whose upgrade looks less striking than that coming to Mafia 1 in apparently August, has just been revealed via a Microsoft Store listing. It will feature all DLC content and is described as a remaster rather than a remake. Now, Mafia 1 out of this trilogy is arguably the most impressive and unexpected aspect of this whole trilogy. So this update reads, while we should have been waiting until next week to hear more of 2K's Mafia Trilogy plans, Microsoft has just posted details of its first entry, a lavish-looking remake of the first Mafia game, onto its own storefront. The impressive-looking new version of the game is listed as Mafia Definitive Edition and is listed for release on August 27th. Mafia 3 developer Hangar 13 is down as its developer. Quote, part of one of the Mafia crime saga, 1930s Lost Heaven, Illinois, remade from the ground up, rise through the ranks of the Mafia during the Prohibition era of organized crime. End quote, its description reads. After a run-in with the mob, cab driver Tommy Angelo is thrust into a deadly underworld. Initially uneasy about falling in with the Solari family, Tommy soon finds that the rewards are too big to ignore. And this was accompanied by screenshots that just looked incredible.
Yeah.
So there's kind of your general write-up for it. Thank you, Eurogamer. Karak, what do you make of the Mafia Trilogy? 1 being a remake, 2 being a remaster, and we're kind of hazy on details with 3, but I imagine it'll just be the original package with its DLC.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see 2 get a what 1 looks like, because 1's screenshots are like what. Yeah. So but I mean, and I think 2, I've seen a couple DLC for mods for 2 that make 2 look pretty damn good, but not, current day good, where the Mafia 1 Definitive Edition, those pictures look amazing. So I'm just excited for it, man. I just think it's cool. I know that I saw some people who were like, oh man, I'd like to see him do something new. I absolutely get that. I'm a person who if you had a choice, I'd say, yeah, new would be great. But the moment the company says the line that they're towing, the way they're going, I immediately like remove my emotion because I can't control the company like that. It makes no sense. So the moment they showed this, I was just like, okay, this is where they're going. Now we need to look at them. And I'm admittedly more interested in one just because of what I saw, like those pictures
coming out in just a few months, man.
Yeah. And and that release thing, I don't know anything about the release thing. It could be the 19th. We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll see if it's a shadow drop. I wouldn't be too surprised if Mafia 2 was a shadow drop. That got rated either really early last year, or I'm sorry, really early this year or late last year.
Right.
So that's been hanging around for a while. I would imagine this trilogy was supposed to come out in one big bunch, but because of what's going on around us, I just have this kind of tinfoil hat conspiracy that it would make more sense to split them up. Obviously, Mafia 1 Remake looks more like a full game, but when it comes to 2 and 3, I see no reason why those two wouldn't be ready right off the bat, and so I wouldn't be too surprised if 2K wanted to stagger the release of Trilogy. But I will admit, it's a little weird if they shadow drop 2 on the 19th, and then the 1 remake is later on, because there's a certain mission in 2, if you've never played 1, that ties in pretty heavily to the first one.
Yeah.
And you'll be kind of like, wait, what the fuck? Yeah, so I would, it's not that you shouldn't play Mafia 2 first by any stretch. It's just that you might have something ruined for you.
You're right, though. You're right. I was confused by the timing. Because when they said trilogy and then I saw definitive, I was like, wait, so maybe there's a trilogy game, and then they're like, here you go with the trilogy, but we're also remaking one, and which to me was like, oh, we're gonna hear about that. People are gonna bitch. But now that you're talking about it, maybe it is just one of those things where release wise, it just didn't come together. So they're like, we're just releasing them staggered.
Yeah,
I agree. I'd rather not see 1 first, or sorry, 2. Yeah. I'd rather not see 2.
No, I know what you meant. Yeah, it's very strange because it's such like a backwards release. What's even more strange is because I just talked about Mafia in a recent video, and so I was reading an old Jason Schreier article about when he covered Hangar 13 and some of what happened after Mafia 3 had released, where it had mixed reception from fans and critics. It didn't do that well financially. Was that originally they were going to make their own new IP? And then they were going to make Mafia 4 in like Las Vegas in the 70s. And that just sounded like perfect. Mm-hmm. And then I guess they stopped both of those and went to instead remake Mafia 1.
Okay.
But what's weird about that, and obviously like things change, right? Like these are humans. Like you might say one thing one day, but then your situation changes and then your feelings change. And suddenly, so maybe they wanted to make their new IP because that's what the article said. They said they always wanted to have their own IP. They love Mafia, but they always want to just have their own thing, which is understandable. Like they want to be the next Mafia, so to speak. You want to be that notable IP. And so they, I guess, abandoned that for the time being to work on a remake. Like it's not just a remaster. Like that is a 2002 game, ladies and gentlemen, that you're looking at. So that's not just a remaster. They completely redid everything with the game. What worries me is, of course, the gameplay loop. Mafia 3 had an excellent story, but its gameplay loop was less than desirable, in my opinion. It just wore you down. That's what it happened. It was like, a fight and a takedown artist in the ring. He's just wearing you down the whole fight, and eventually, by the 5th round, you're tapping out. That's kind of what Mafia 3 was. And I just hope that they don't carry that gameplay loop into 1. I've never played 1, but I imagine it was not like that, and it was probably a little more straightforward.
It is, but it's also a sign of its times. So if they don't change stuff, I could see some people being like, this feels old, because it is old. So you do have, internally, it'll be weird to see which decision they went with. Do we stick the way it was, or do we change stuff, and then did that change work?
You just never know, I imagine, as one of the developers. Right. You just have no idea. What I found really interesting, too, is as we were reading through this write-up, this article mentioned that Mafia 1's remake is listed as Mafia Definitive Edition, and then Mafia 2 is listed as Mafia 2 Definitive Edition. but one comes
Yes.
as a remaster. One comes as a remake.
Right.
This is the problem we were just talking about last week, about how these remasters, remakes, definitive editions, special editions, what have you, the term is meaningless almost at this point.
And this will show it even more when it's 2 games in the same series. It's definitely meaningless. I mean, there's no way to even track now what you're getting or what a develop. And I mean, I'm not 100% sure we're required to have that. It's just, I think all consumers would like to have it, obviously. What is weird though, Maddie, is this reminds me of video game cards, video cards for PCs, because you can buy a video card and then the company will name them fucked up and you'll be like, oh, this is the next gen card, like a 2070 or a 2060, which sounds next gen compared to a 1080 Ti. And then you'll be like, wait, what? It's worse? And they're like, yeah, this is the Econo line, like Intel.
Yeah.
You can buy an Intel and go, this is great, and find out that they removed multi-core hyper-threading from the new i7s unless they're a specific thing, and you can not know and buy the wrong thing. So it's not unheard of. I hate it though.
Yeah, less information is worse, but hopefully people will be able to do their research. If not, I imagine this will still be the preferable way to play if anyone wanted to play the Mafia.
True that,
original,
right?
It's
exactly
a 2002
right.
game, so I'm just happy that they did take this route with the original Mafia. I was wondering how well that would age, and then seeing it's being remade does give me a little more hope in that regard. Mafia 2, I'm a little bummed out about that it's just a remaster. The reason I say that is because, I mean, imagine if they didn't even have to remake the game by any stretch. I just feel like, what if they added open world activities, right? It's an LA Noire situation. You have this really, really awesome game, incredible story, and then just the world is there. Like, you have this open world, but it's just a space to go from point A to point B to your next story mission. There's no side quests. In the case of Mafia, you can collect some cars, but like, you could tell easily they wanted to do more. And I feel like that's the game that's most ripe to say, like, hey, let's set up something a little similar to Mafia 3 system where you have to take down some hideouts or fight some gangs in some alleys, or there's just a couple of activities you could pepper throughout the world just so that you don't have to go from story mission to story mission, because I feel like that wouldn't be to the game's detriment at all if they didn't just oversaturate it.
Yeah, I mean, they may have also chosen it because of it. There could be something technical on the side where they wanted to do story,
That's
but
true.
maybe there's not a voice actor for what they need or whatever, or the cost is too much for making it better. I would rather have them with 2, just make sure so 1 and 2's controls are not the best. Even 3's controls not the best. All I really care about is, at the very minimum, if you're remastering a game, I think even if you're remastering a game with just resolution, you should still look at the controls and say, are they up to snuff with even with the mediocre examples of the current titles? And I will say both of those games have a couple issues with control. So that to me is actually going to be a little bit more important, like to see how they play overall, if they feel not even current, but you know what I mean, improved gameplay wise.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. One thing I hope for is that when I was making my video on Mafia, I was playing Mafia 2, and I did not realize how far the camera pulls in for a third-person shooter. When you aim in, it is pretty ridiculous. The screen gets a little crowded, so I hope they kind of yank that back a little bit.
Right. Give you a little more room.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it pulls you in so close that like Vito's shoulder will block like a good chunk of the screen, and you're kind of like trying to look around them. So yeah, I'm hoping that that's something that they do amend to some extent. That seems like a simple quality of life improvement, but we'll see. They're calling it the definitive edition, so we'll see what that means, because I guess all 3 are getting definitive editions if they're calling the first remake one, and then 2 and 3 were listed as definitive on the ratings boards, and 2 leaked as that name. So we'll see. This was indeed, Karak, the week of remasters and remakes, what have you, because Tony Hawk is back.
Yeah.
Tony Hawk 1 and 2 are being remastered. You're shaking your head a little bit.
That one, I mean, it was sort of a surprise in a weird way. I don't know why. I was surprised by it.
Yeah, it was kind of like a secret that wasn't kept that well, because I know a band leaked the soundtrack, or that they were going to be on the soundtrack, And then they also had leaked, I think like another skater who was going to be in the game, Jason Dill, it was, had leaked that it was happening. So there were little things cropping up, but I was like, oh, this is so far down the line. They're probably not even going to announce it. And they did during the Summer Games Fest. And so Tony Hawk went through a tumultuous ride, pardon the pun, because there was like Skate Jam and like Tony Hawk's Ride. There was just a lot of bad games. So now it seems like Vicarious Visions is teaming up with Tony Hawk and Activision, which I actually trust this. I know a lot of people know I'm not a huge fan of Activision, but Vicarious Visions were the people who did remake Crash 1 through 3, and I thought they did a pretty good job with that. I'm unsure if they also did they also do, no, that was someone else who did Spyro. But I trust what they did with, I trust them rather based off what had happened with Crash, and I'm not even a huge fan of Crash. A lot of people were like, oh man, but Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 was terrible, but that was a completely different developer. And they rushed that game out because the Tony Hawk contract for that company was about to end, so they were just trying to capitalize on any money that was out there. So let's read an article from The Verge, and then we'll pass it off to Karak. Today, Activision announced a new remastered collection that brings together the first 2 Tony Hawk Pro Skater games in one modern package, with new features like online play and a more robust course builder. It'll be coming to PS4, Xbox One, and PC via the Epic Games Store on September 4th. First, here are the basics. The remastered collection will feature updated visuals, all of the original levels, characters, and tricks. There will be extra challenges, a more elaborate Create a Park mode where you can share custom skate parks online, and a brand new online multiplayer mode along with local multiplayer. On top of that, the game includes the vast majority, that's in quotes, of the iconic Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtrack, though not every song made it due to licensing issues, which, that's kind of out of their control. But yeah, I do hope that Superman makes it into the game. That's incredibly important because that's like the song for Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Let's see here. Is there anything else this mentions? The remaster is being handled by Vicarious Visions, as I mentioned earlier, which has some history with both the Skate franchise and remaking games. Some of the studio's earlier projects were surprisingly excellent portable versions of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series, while more recently the developer had released Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, also a remaster of PlayStation-era classics. So, Karak, new Create a Park mode, old tricks, new dog.
And I think if I heard Tony right, because I did watch his stream, I think he said that like number 3's there was a special move with the trigger, revert. Is that what it is?
Yeah, you could revert, I imagine, in the later ones.
He said that some things were added from 3 into 2, so it's not, or into these. So when you do get these, some parts of the later games and some particular moves are actually being added as well, which I thought was pretty cool. So it's not just absolutely the stuff from 1 and 2. Because he was talking to there was the programmer Jeff Keighley and him sitting together talking, and she was talking in particular about how much they played. She was a big fan. Which is always cool to see when the dev is excited.
That's what you want.
But yeah, I mean, I hold 5. I hold everybody accountable for 5 just because it's terrible.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it should be excusable. I hope I didn't come across that way.
Yeah, no, you didn't. I'm just saying. I really hold it again because 5 was surprising, dude. I did one of those unacceptable games found videos. Well, I've only done like 6 in my life. Yeah, it's horrendous. It was like a minute 30 seconds of the review of just me going like, how the fuck did this get made? Like it's a terrible game. And
that was 2015, right?
Yeah, that was like not right when I started, but yeah, because I started 2014. I think it was my first major full year. But yeah, I mean, wow. I know that we talked, you're a tiny bit more into it than I am. But I would say overall, I was a pretty big fan. I guess the things that I care about is like, if it's still got, I like the other stuff you can do, build your park and stuff. I just hope it's the same, just jump in, though, if you want to do that without any of the other rigmarole. Like, create a character is great. Yeah, dude, I just want to jump in and just play and not worry about any of the other shit. I probably
Mhm.
won't mess around with the creative park unless it's very cool locations.
Oh, really?
Probably not. Probably
Interesting.
not. I might download yours kind of thing, but I don't think
Right.
I would make my own. I'm not as into skating as that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I also wonder about the price because that's one thing that we're going to see is like how much are
I
they going to charge
think it's
60?
$40.
Is it 40 for both though?
Oh, well, I'll look that
You
up
get
in
my
the meantime.
drift?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
look that
so
up.
so my worry is that it's like 40 a piece. I hope it's not, but the reason why I bring that up is if it's 1 and 2, then if I for some reason think in my head it'll be released separately. And if it's released separately, if 1 and 2 are released separately, then it goes into my head that both will be 40 a piece. So I'm just a little confused on the pricing
It
scheme.
From the writing, it seems like together they are $40.
Oh, well then that's
It
good.
says Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 is priced at $39.99, and a digital deluxe version with,
Oh,
quote, unique content and in-game gear, end quote, costs $50. There's also, I forgot to mention this, a very cool collector's edition, which includes a birdhouse deck, like an actual skateboard deck that you can get.
oh,
Which
cool.
for $100, I guess that's not too bad because you get the game plus a skate deck, which I just thought that was a pretty neat thing because usually you get like doodads or figures, so you can get actually something you could use.
Yeah,
Which
that's not a bad.
I thought was really
It's not
cool.
bad at all.
Yeah. See, I'm not one of those people like when Super Mario Maker, I think that's what it's called, when that was like announced. That's a game that I look at and go, nah, not for me. I don't think I have the mind for side scrollers, but as someone I guess who used to skate a lot, and I miss skating a ton now. I might get back into it just because I can't play any sports or anything. So it's like
Yeah,
I need something to do. So I've been considering getting back into skating again, but I guess because I've had my hands on actual skate parks and been in them, and I grew up playing these games. For those who are wondering, American Wasteland's personally my favorite. I fucking love that game. Did you ever play that, by the way? Because like you have that one base where as you complete missions, they take these insane objects from like a casino and they'll put them in this gigantic ultimate skate park.
it doesn't ring a bell. Doesn't mean
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't, but that one doesn't ring a bell. Yeah.
Yeah, just I grew up with all of those games, Underground and 4. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 is one of my favorites. So I think I just have a mind for it because I've had so much hands-on time with it. But same thing went with like Doom Snap Map. I had the same perspective you had. Oh, I'll play whatever people make.
Yeah.
But in that case, I'll probably be with you, or I'll probably be with the people who are actually making stuff.
Oh, cool.
As will my
You got.
dogs.
I was just gonna say this is the first time you've got a full on. I'm surprised my dog isn't answering your dog.
Yeah. I don't know what gets into them. They bark at nothing. Nothing. Like the door will be shut. There will be no stimulation. There will be absolutely no sounds outside, and they will just haul off and be like, "Fuck it, let's make noise." Like
It's also
incredible.
funny that right now it's funny, but like at 3 o'clock in the morning on a
Yeah.
fucking windy night or whatever, and they're barking at a wall, and you're all, wait, does this dog?
Mm-hmm.
Do they see spirits? What's happening?
Yeah. Yeah. My girlfriend's one of those people who just, she believes like dogs can see spirits and stuff.
Oh,
And
right, yeah.
And my dad is too. So like when they start barking at the walls, my dad's like, oh, someone's here or something like that. I'm just like, all right. You don't need to freak me out in the process. All right, let's move on to Ghost of Tsushima. We saw a pretty extensive look at this game on State of Play this week. About 15 plus minutes of gameplay. I have a whole video that's going up on my channel talking about what I saw with the game. I will just say it wasn't like overly positive, but it definitely wasn't negative. I just wasn't blown away. But Karak, I'm very curious as to what your thoughts are on Ghost.
I think they beat Ubisoft to Assassin's Creed Japan.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it looked fun, but it did not look. I don't know what the classic, or I don't know even what the term would be. There was a lot of weird jankiness too, like shooting guys with arrows and they'd flip up in the air, and you're like, "What is happening?" There's all these oddities, but it looked really cool graphically. I will say I blame Sony and Microsoft both for doing this. They both have done it now, and they need to stop, which is streaming really poor bit rate to YouTube, and it looked fucking horrendous. So I had to go and get the 4K real version later and rewatch it all.
A lot of my Twitch audience did too.
Oh, dude, it was ugly. That was one of the
Yeah.
worst videos I think I've seen. It was like IGN quality, and they're known to have like shit quality. So I watched it. It looked fun. They sort of did some. So I'm happy because I think you and I actually talked about this at least 2, if not 3 weeks ago. I've been bitching that I've always wanted a Dark Souls game that isn't really Dark Souls so casual people can play it. And I had been hoping that some game would come about. And looking at that gameplay, that's pretty much what it looks like. So Sekiro, but without the huge difficulty. Because it's got like the slow motion or the momentary draw, and then everybody like swings a sword, which could be fun. I mean, in a weird way, they didn't show as much as I wanted, because like they showed cosmetics, and they're like, and it changes the way you play, and then never showed anything about that. They just showed his changing, and it's like every game does that. I mean, they have a plus tier.
Well, that's kind of where it started for me. Because your words right there, every game does that. That's kind of what I felt like while watching it. I felt I saw a kind of catch-all of elements I've seen in like the last 3 years, 4 years thrown into this game. And I would normally not have a problem with that at all, but it was more so that this is coming from a company who's made the likes of Sly Cooper or Infamous, which are, can we really think of any game that is close to either of those two? It's tough to think of. And so for me, when I saw that game kind of looking like a Ubisoft game, right? Like you said, Assassin's Creed Japan, which isn't a bad thing. It's just, it's very familiar. And I was disappointed because of that. I was very underwhelmed by what I had saw. It doesn't look bad. I think it'll be fun, but I just expected a lot more. Oh, this looks new from that.
Yeah, there was, I don't think there was. Oh, go ahead. It's been 6 years.
I was just saying,
what?
It's been 6 years since we've really seen a full game from them. So for me, it was like, I wasn't even like hyped. I was just thinking to myself, okay, it's been 6 years. I imagine they've got something that separates this. And when you start seeing him like finish destroying a ship and the camera pulls out and it says destroyed shipyard, and it does the same thing a Far Cry game does. And to me, when I saw that, that's when I was thinking like, oh man, this is very familiar. Or the same thing is like just little subtle things like glowing plants or lootable, and they're used to craft just incredibly familiar gameplay.
Yeah, the lootable, all that kind of stuff, the way all that happened, it surprised me because they're like, hey, you can follow the wind to your new location. You're like, all right, so that takes a game mechanic and puts it into the game world. That makes sense. And then nothing else was done that way. Everything else was a mechanic with a shining radar color or something like that. And you're like, well, that's weird. There was one specific thing that they were like, look at, this is unique or at least fits in the game world. And then they were like, yeah, there's a ton of collectibles, so look for like smoke in the forest. And I was like, wait, look for smoke in the, like every game does it. And that could be their 6 years thing too. It could be that 6 years ago, that stuff maybe was dude, I mean, honestly, hate them or like the way their narrative is. Odyssey and Origins have sort of done pretty well with not necessarily moving things forward, but at least looking at what was offered and saying, here's a ton of shit that's fun to do. You can do it the way you want and have a good time. And then you see this and you're like, oh, wow, it's going to be special. And the only thing special was the wind and the draws, the slow, where like two samurai stare at each other and then attack. Yeah. Also, that camera was not very good. I'm just going to say what I was seeing in that video made me a little nervous for some camera angles. There was some weirdness with it being, he was really far to the left, which was odd. But it still looked fun, regardless of all that. I was like, shit, I love Odyssey. So Odyssey's fun. So I'm okay with that.
I guess Odyssey I liked because it had that mixture of almost goofiness. The Spartan kick, of course, is what comes to mind. The crazy dash abilities you could do.
Right.
When it came to Ghosts, did you watch the 2018 gameplay by chance afterwards?
No, but I watched
the
28.
In your head?
I watched the 28 gameplay stuff like 3 months ago.
Okay, so one thing that was in that was dismemberment. It was a lot smoother. Yeah, it was a lot more smooth, and so that was not present at all in.
I did find a hand chopped off. So I tweeted and said there was no I'm not seeing dismemberment, and somebody said we just saw it, and of course I had just tweeted, so it was right when I was watching the trailer and I didn't look. I went back and looked, and there is a single hand that is chopped off in that battle.
A hand.
A hand. So my
That's
opinion,
funny.
Maddie, is that when it comes to dismemberment itself, they may be skirting the they may be worried about blood laws and stuff, which is why like Warhammer, the latest Warhammer Rome total Warhammer game, you have to buy the DLC for 99 cents to add blood to the game because it skirts the laws for violence. So maybe they just, for whatever reason, they want it to be really G-rated or something because there's one hand in that entire time. And there was a lot of striking going on in that video. So I expected arms and legs to be flying off.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is in 2018, he took like an arm clean off.
Yep.
He was like gouging people and then kicking them off his blade. And in this one, it looked more hack and slash, and the animations definitely took a hit. And it kind of led me to this conclusion where I was like, this doesn't look bad. Like, I'm with you. It does not look bad. And I'm sure people will think I'm saying that, but I'm really not. I'm just more so saying that probably if this game were to have released 2 years ago, a year and a half ago,
right.
I can almost guarantee I'd be receiving it differently. Just because it's clear that it's been stuck in development for a while and now they're just trying to shove it out, which sucks, but you know, it's been 6 years. They've got to get something out outside of Infamous First Light, which was a little standalone thing.
There also could be something we're not seeing. For example, if the equipment stuff adjusts dismemberment, for example. So maybe in one of the videos they've decided we're going to tune down dismemberment on lower level swords. That way when you get a high level sword, it does more dismemberment. I have no problems with that, so I'm going to hold, any worry of it missing for that. I personally don't think that's probably what's happening, but it's happened before. That kind of weird shit has happened before. I just feel that it was a little downgraded. I mean, it's still, the problem is I don't really care about the downgrades because I know how development's done. Well, so do you, but I'm not saying we don't, but I'm saying some people may not. They're like a game, they shoot for something. They're like, whoa, we can't hit this polygon budget. So maybe something like that happened. I still think it looked pretty fucking awesome, like graphically when he's riding in the wind and the grass and the jungle, the world all. Yeah. So I just don't know. There were some things hidden in that trailer for sure, or in that gameplay for sure, including that armor, because he's like, it physically changes stuff, but then they clicked away from it. And I was like, that makes no, like, what does that mean? So there could be something else on there.
Yeah, it might have to do with the weapon because the enemies he was cutting down were not armored in the slightest.
Right.
So
and they weren't really getting damaged. Did you notice?
Yeah. I was gonna say if there was anyone to get like dismembered, for example, it probably would have been that group of enemies he was fighting in the shipyard when he was in the samurai. What did you think of the stealth gameplay? Because I thought that's where it was like. It was a very transparent look at the game because, the guy got caught in the middle of like 3 different enemies and threw a smoke bomb and then abused the stealth system to take down the enemy in front of him. And I thought to myself, that's something I would do, but if I were showing off my game, I probably wouldn't do that. You get what I'm saying?
I think the stealth was poorly shown.
Yeah.
I think the stealth didn't look fun either. But I wouldn't play it. It's my kind of stealth because I'll stealth for a couple times and then be like, done. And, fucking go full bore. But he rode his horse directly up to the fucking gates. He's like, here's stealth. And it shows AI hasn't really, and AI won't necessarily improve with better CPUs, but AI hasn't really increased. And the AI looked rough because he just rides his horse up. He fights one guy, he throws fireworks down, which are loud, and it calls people, but then no one from anywhere near even looks. So I don't know, but I will say the stealth didn't look, it didn't look fun at all. That stealth to me did not look like something I would want to do for a long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think I don't think it looks bad, like I said. I just want to make sure people know that.
I think it was a bad showing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it
we
just
won't know.
didn't instill confidence. It underwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
me. I
Yeah.
was expecting something good at the very least, and it's not that it's going to be a bad game. It's just I saw it and went, oh, okay, it's
Right.
another open world game,
Same.
and that's that's up people's alley, and that's fine. It's a checklist open world. Spider-Man's a checklist open world, and I fucking love that game. I think the
Yeah.
difference with Spider-Man is you've got gadgets, you've got tons of suits, different ways to handle encounters, a free flow combat system, the webs, the traversal. I think a lot of things remove the checklist weight, whereas this doesn't have that fantasy element, so to speak. And it really lays into its realism a little bit more, which is good because you have games like Neo, which are very action heavy, and you're flinging around like an anime hero. And then you got Sekiro, which is almost like a rhythm game where you just kind of parry and jump and analyze your foe. And that's, as you mentioned earlier, also a lot more difficult, where this could be that good in between. So I think this is going to be the game for a lot of people that they've wanted but couldn't get out of Sekiro or Neo. And that's great. I was not in love with what I saw. And I have a video coming out on it today as we record this podcast, and I do not anticipate good results. I definitely do not, because I'm sure people are going to be disappointed with my opinion, but that's okay. All right, let's move on into our next bit of news. Karak, this is all you. We're talking about Halo Infinite apparently having an event soon.
Yeah, let me grab and I just had this up here. I replaced it with Paper Mario. I replaced it with one of my searches that we just did. I think it was Paper Mario. There we go.
Probably Paper Mario, because we were talking about that
Game
before.
Spot. Yeah, so it says Halo Infinite will be at July's Xbox. Oh, God, the music's playing. Sorry, for their website. We'll be at July's Xbox Series X reveal event, and this is from May 15th. So what is that? That's today.
Today.
By GameSpot, and it says Halo Infinite will be at the Xbox Series X launch. Will be an Xbox Series X launch game, but we haven't seen any gameplay footage from it. When we learned that Xbox would showcase first-person titles or first-party titles for the system in the upcoming Xbox 2020 presentation in July, we assumed Halo Infinite would be one of them, and now we have official confirmation. And the latest post on Halo Waypoint, developer 343's Industries, states that we'll see more of the game during the upcoming stream. You may have seen people talking about this lightly before, but we're extremely excited to confirm that Halo Infinite will be one of the many first-party titles included in the Xbox 2020 event in July, the post reads. There's no other confirmation other than that. Well, that's Waypoint. That's them. So, I mean, that's for sure confirmation.
Okay, perfect. So we know Halo's coming. They're staying true to that launch title thing, man. And if the rumors are to be believed about this game, I am very keen on what they're going to be doing with the franchise. Apparently open world.
Yeah.
That is the rumor, which, the name suggests it. So let's be honest, that's not like some type of rumor or secret. Like, what do you like? Are you excited to see more Halo? I know that might be a rhetorical question and a really simple one too, but where do you stand on Halo?
I mean, I am, but I don't know what we're gonna like, dude. So I didn't hate the last ones, and I like Master Chief, but I feel like there's almost no way for them to come back. Like, what do you do? Do you just do Halo 1 again? Like, do you just put him on another, which it seems like that might be what they're doing, is they're like, fuck it, we're just going to put him on another ship and have him, fight the Flood and the Covenant on a different Halo. I guess you could do that. I just don't know exactly what you're going to get. And the Infinite thing is like, what does that mean? Sandbox? Or does it mean Infinite Halos? Does it mean, what exactly are we getting with this? I also will say I might be one of the few people that really was not impressed at all with their in-game cutscene that they showed. When they showed that, like, what was that? With the guy, dusting him off and him looking around the starting of Halo, where it's like I think he was identifying the direction.
That didn't get me hyped, I'll be honest, yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't really do it for me.
I like, it did, yeah, it didn't at all for me. I just need to sort of see what their plans are. Those games work the best too when it's just like open spot, load of enemies, narrative to make you want to get to the other side of open spot, and done. Just be like, Don't get so fucking wordy with why are they like, why? It's not a novel, man. just be like, Master Chief's got to get to the other side. Why? Because there's bacon over there. And I'd be like, okay,
Less
bacon.
is more.
Dude, let's do it. And I would probably consider that amazing. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Excited, but
Yeah.
not like on fire for it.
Yeah, I'd probably sit in the same park. I think Halo, like many people out there, holds a pretty good spot in my heart. You know, I grew up on the series, especially. I think I just talked about it last week, how that was the game. Yeah, we were answering Patron questions, and I said how Halo 1 or 2 was a game I played before school for like the only time ever. So I have good memories of it, and I've gone back to Halo 1 a lot. The idea, though, of a Halo open world game kind of makes me think, I wonder if this is what the dream was with Halo 1 when you're on the ring and it just feels so open and large. And it is very large for a game of its time, but I look at that and go like, man, I wonder if like they wanted to make this like a very, I don't even know if the term was around at that point in time, but like an open world, or envisioned that at some point in time. Obviously, it's a different developer now. Bungie's no longer in the picture, but I'm very curious to see how they handle a larger world space for this game, because they're definitely taking that route. I think we're going to see the brutes more so than anything, because I know that Halo Wars 2...
Keep talking. I'm going to put him out. He's whining.
No problem. I'm pretty confident in this, and it has been 3 years? Someone can correct me. But it's been about that number of years since Halo Wars 2 had dropped. And I remember in its story, the brutes were a pretty significant part of it all, and they were ramping up and doing a teaser to what was happening in Halo 6 or Infinite, whichever you want to call it. At least that was my personal interpretation. I could be wrong. I'm not a Halo lore geek. But when it comes to 1, 2, 3, I know my stuff. It depends if they're going to keep like spinning around and chasing their tail as well. I do wonder a little bit about, like, are they going to introduce a new enemy type? What are they going to do to make us be invested? Are you going to rely, like, it's kind of in a tough spot where it's like, they go back to the Flood or they go back to the Covenant. Are we now in that, oh, this is familiar? They do something new, like what they did with Halo 4, and you're like, oh, this is not really hitting right. That's what I wonder about with the spot they're in, which is why I think the brutes are kind of the logical next step, at least for me.
And I liked the Tron-like enemies in 4. Not loved, but I liked them. And I wouldn't have... I think they were probably hard to hit because... Or they were a target that's hard to hit because the Flood are awesome. Like, the Flood are they're creepy. The Covenant are cool. They're religious. And then you're trying to, like, how do you spin another group in here? Especially when those guys are considered the badasses. So you're like, if these two are the badasses, where's this other group that you're trying to inject into the game? Where do they fit? But I think overall, your best bet would be, at least to me, would be if they somehow figure a way to get two enemy types, 3 enemy types, whatever they want to do, as long as they get the 4-player co-op team going out there in the open AI kind of, flexible combat, as long as they get that, I don't think they actually have to go too nuts with anything else. Because I just don't know of anybody who talks about the other stuff. Like, all the other stuff they've added, I don't ever hear anybody talking about. They talk about the old shit from 3 and prior. And Reach, admittedly, I know a lot of people like Reach. I'm not as big a fan of Reach as a lot of people.
I liked Reach's multiplayer and its story. I liked everything about it. Now I think about it, that was a good game.
What about ODST? Because I also didn't like ODST at all.
I thought it had a good atmosphere. It was kind of more of the same, but, it wasn't bad. I don't know. Outside of Halo 5, I really don't think there was a bad entry in the series. I think 5's multiplayer, and not a lot of people like the pacing of the multiplayer because they added sprinting, and that kind of changed up how people would get to like the weapon pickups and how the map played out. There was just a science to the original Halo multiplayer, so I totally get where people are coming from. I didn't mind it though. I think it was a little more intuitive for newer players, but I think they need to just get back to basics with Infinite, and I think it's possible. It's gonna try new things, of course, but I think if they simplify it and kind of like what you said, it doesn't need to be a novel, like just straight shoot it. You know, the Halo 1 through 3 storyline really wasn't like complex. It was relatively straightforward. No. It's just that it was good. It was entertaining, and they gave you motivation plus interesting levels and a cool universe, and just they built on that. You know, it didn't need a lore handbook, and like it doesn't need to be super deep. Like, I don't know how else to word it. I like depth, but like it doesn't need to always be that. There's no need for it.
I do think we could so I think a good deal of why I enjoyed Halo 1 through 3 was their sense of exploration was fairly well developed, and it was fun you saw something, there was a mystery there, and you were like, whoa, what's this thing, what's this location? And then you sort of encountered the location via bullets. Like, that's pretty much how you search places, by killing other people. They're like the Americans of sci-fi, you know, like, we're going to take over your area. So to me, what I would love to see is for them new locations with new environments. So we got snow. We already had snow in 1, but, you know, you've got it in each game. You've got these new environments. Different planet types would be cool. So, like, if you had a destroyed, you know, we did get a destroyed one in 5. You know, I just mean different ecosystems. Right. You know, because I think some of the best parts of 1 were like in the swamp when the flood finally come out, and you're in the swamp and you're like, what the fuck? And
yeah, it's a combination of locale and mystery.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah, and I would like just to like them continue to hit that. And then they didn't really have a scarab battle after 3. What I mean by that is, whenever I talk to anybody about 3, it's almost always, you know, these 1 or 2 big set pieces, and then 4, 5, even Reach, even ODST. That, yeah, if they are talked about, they're not talked about in the same, like, whoa, remember that. They need to figure out how to nail the remember that moment, and I just don't know how they do it. Like, how do they go about nailing that 1 or 2 moments where, like, people play the entire campaign for that moment, which is what they did for 3 and what they did for 1 and 2, I believe. Like, I will tell you, dude, number 1, the first time you go into a snowy plateau, you know, and you have the big open area, and it's just like, and you can almost see the mod. It's almost like a mod. You're like, dude, there's just like 6 bad guys on the other end. There's a truck. It's flipped over. There's some rocks, and it's an open area. And yet, somehow, it became one of the coolest battles ever.
Yep. Well said. Yeah, I was it in Halo 2 that you go back to Earth? I think in the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and you what's his name? Hellboy was a commander. Ron Perlman and his daughter, wasn't that too? Yeah.
Yeah, so. Right? Yeah, I bring that up because I remember why I liked 2's story now was because, like, 1 was I like you were talking about the level of the snow, so we'll stick with that. Me as a kid walking out into that level and being like, oh my god, it snows here, like, this is crazy. Yeah. It's kind of just like Earth, because like that first level, you're walking around the ring and like you look up into the sky and you can see part of the ring arching over, and it looks very beautiful, and so you know you're almost home but not quite there. Like, it's familiar in some ways but not in others. And then you go to some place and it's snowing, you're like, okay, so it has its own weather cycle. And then you go back to Earth and it's like that sense of normalcy actually like helped the series in a way, because then in 3, you know, you encounter the flood again and whatnot, and just, yeah, I think we kind of hit the nail on the head with it's about locales, enemy types, and just sort of pushing you in that direction. I know games demand like certain things in shooters, like Doom Eternal is probably the best shooter I've played in a long while. It's a lot of verticality. It's fast. It's very in your face, but it has a good pacing to it, and it manages to help its story because of that. And so I think if they kind of keep on that route, minus the speed, because Halo's really not known for speed, it's got its own deliberate pace, I think they could have something good here. But we shall see. Let's move on to our last bit of big news for the week. It is about the Unreal Engine 5 demo. So we saw some gameplay running in real time on Unreal Engine 5. There was talk of triangles, hundreds of thousands of triangles, Karak. On top of that,
no shit.
We saw, you know, a new lighting system, new animation systems, just new. Some things a little more beefed up than others, like contextual animations, which is like, you know, you're walking through a doorway and your character touches the the side entrance, stuff that we have seen before that is being amped up as something new, spatialized audio. But Karak, you're our tech guy. I tried my best to dissect this on my channel. According to the audience, I did not do that bad of a job. But
good.
for the listeners here, yeah, I thought I did an all right job. It took a lot of research, but did an all right job. But what did you make of this? How did you feel about what you saw?
I think the best thing about this really has very little to do with us and more to do with artists, because an artist having to make multiple level of detail models, depending on how your graphics engine is going to switch between your mid, your long, what tier distance, the ability of a system to just say, you give me your model and I'll figure out the distance and the LODs myself. That it just helps everybody. There's a story about Daikatana, which was the guy who made Doom, John Romero. He was going to make a game called Daikatana, and there's this like huge story about a behind the scenes mess up that involves just this, where the artist made an arrow that was like 1 million polygons and thought it could be put into the game to be played right then. And we're talking like 15 years ago, where 1 million polygons, there was no chance of doing that. But because the artist and the game developer were using different assets, and this doesn't look like that. It looks like you put it in, it figures it out artificially, removes what you can't see, all that kind of stuff, and puts it in. I think that's awesome. The morphine animation was cool because, dude, I can't tell you how many times I'm so tired of somebody walking up steps and it looks like their toes are shatter because they're like tippy-toeing on a step.
Yeah.
And they go up and you're like, dude, why can't you just put his foot on the step? And all that kind of stuff looked good. The audio stuff, everybody's making a big deal about the audio, which I personally think is cool. I just feel that shit's going to be lost and it's going to be really quickly ignored, because everybody I talk to, even in my own Discord, and I'm a fucking reviewer who covers sound and music, tells me, yeah, I just turn off the music and I fucking listen to a podcast while I'm playing. Or I turn off the sound. I'm like, oh my God, really?
Yeah, I know.
So that's awesome for me as a nerd. And then all the other stuff was cool. It's just, unfortunately, you didn't see it with characters. You didn't see it with actors. You didn't see with collision detection. What we really saw was a lighting system that will be able to be used with or without ray tracing, which is cool. But it won't be used for everything. So I think that's the thing. One thing Digital Foundry made sure to point out too is that not everybody will want to go with Unreal, at all.
Which has always been the case.
Which has always been the case. Look at Death Stranding and the Horizon Zero Dawn. Completely separate custom engine because it speaks to what they want to do. So yeah, it was interesting. It was cool to watch, but I wasn't in love when I saw what I saw. It was more for artists, more for creators, which is going to make their job. If they're not fucking around making 85 things, then they can actually do more work on whatever we want to get in the game, which is cool.
Yeah. So my interpretation is that it speeds up development process, a lot more, because instead of drawing you pretty much what you said earlier, drawing different levels of the thing.
Yeah.
You just kind of toss it in there and that's it. It adjusts for itself, which is great news because games can be made quicker. Did this end up getting you more hyped for the next generation of consoles? Because that's something that I didn't expect to feel, and I did. I saw not even the tech demo from a graphical perspective, because I know it wants to look shiny and clean, but some of the little things that were tucked in there made me go okay, this, this has, no loading screens, as this character went through this whole area, climbed up to the top, something happened cutscene wise, then they dropped off and they fly through that whole level and go through a portal, and it was all smooth. Did any of that speak to you as oh wow, this kind of looks next gen to me?
No, but that's because for example, she halfway through the level, she goes between two fucking rocks, and somebody got mad and was I thought they said there were going to be no loading screens. And it's dude, do you know how many times a game has a character shimmy through two rocks to build drama? Thousands. It's not always about loading. The rest of the stuff was great that there was no loading. The flying, around, that's the way they should sort of look. So to me, that's where I expect a game to look, interactive wise and speed wise. You could tell it was moving the camera around. They weren't playable camera angles when she was flying. Like, to me, stopping and looking around, what would we see? Obviously, that's not what what it was trying to do. It was trying to get us interested in this fucking Stargate you're running towards. To me, I've seen too many of these demos, though, Maddie. Like, too many times, right? Oh, and then another thing is, yes, it is true. A couple companies have early release. This actually doesn't go live for all devs until the end of 2021. So you're talking 2021, yeah. And they did announce that, but the thing is some companies are working, and then they'll be able to sort of port into Unreal, like with all of these bonuses, but a lot won't have their setup won't even be ready for some of these changes in 2021. They'll be halfway through a game or what have you. You're talking 2022, 23 before you start seeing like a company start with this and end with this. So that'll be, I think, a little interesting. So like, you have Phil Spencer saying, hey, we've got some companies that are going to leverage Unreal, in their games, but it's like when and how far and what type of leverage. It's more like a 1.5 versus a 2 where they started with that engine.
Gotcha.
Lighting's cool. Because it shows there's another way to do lighting other than ray tracing. The problem is, if you're a nerd, if you're not a nerd, don't worry about this shit. I want to make sure this is clear. Let's do a little preface. However, the first thing I noticed is when she moved, she had a huge corona around her head because the lighting was taking multiple samples to start displaying. So when she moves her head, there's a huge delay of lighting changing around her head. Digital Foundry found it too. There's always negatives to this stuff. You don't just magically go, boom, look at this, we fixed everything. I have a feeling some companies will go with Unity for various reasons. In fact, the biggest part of this, Matty, is actually Unreal waived their engine license. So you have to sell $1 million worth of games before they will charge you now for the engine, which is cool.
That is very cool. That's great news.
Right. Anything to get people to use it. Yeah. Yeah.
So good stuff. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more I can add to it. I was pleased with what I saw. It got me more excited for the next generation of consoles. And shall we move on to the Patron questions?
I have a question for you. Did Spider-Man use its own engine? I can't remember.
That's by Insomniac. I think I'd imagine that they used something like Unreal.
Okay.
I would double check that though, if you want to, while I pull up the questions.
Yeah, go for it. Pull up the questions and I'll look.
All right, let's move on into it, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Patron Questions, where every week we dive into our Patreon Discord.
Proprietary.
Your questions. Proprietary? Okay.
That's what I figured it was proprietary. That's the thing is you get a game that looks like Spider-Man that's proprietary, you're going to have the same thing on PS5, where, an Xbox, because they can all run the same stuff, so.
Okay, got a handful of questions this week. Let us begin with Holzer19. Based on the success and groundwork laid, which potential sequel to a recent smaller/less funded game excites you the most? Would have to be Kingdom Come Deliverance for me. Deliverance laid out such a solid foundation, and its success could allow for more resources being spent on the next one.
Vampire, without any hesitation.
Answer. Yeah, Vampire for sure. I would love to see what that series can do with a little more money in it. I think they did a good job with what they had. Arguably, like one of the best jobs I've seen, because they had a very small budget. They said that it was a success at $500K. So that means not a lot of money was poured into that game. And 500K sales, I should say. So that means not a lot was poured into that game. And, geez, man. The voice acting, the conversation system, it's just so unique. I'd love to see how they can build on that and then make new gameplay elements to make it a little more inviting. A lot of people didn't like the gameplay, so I'd like Vampire. Johnny E.C. says, I'm currently playing Manhunt for the first time, and I am already enamored with this game. Sorry if you hear like pounding on my window, by the way. It is pouring right now.
Pouring rain? It's raining hard?
Pouring rain.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
like really coming down. Like if I'm looking, I can barely see outside my house right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Everything about this game is dark and eerie, from gangs being comprised of pedophiles, psychopaths, and mentally ill to locations consisting of abandoned apartments, malls, etc. The story is also really disturbing in that you are forced as a participant you are a forced participant of a snuff film where you are being recorded killing people for sexual pleasure of others, and even the person that guides you throughout the game, the director, has dialogue where he admits to, quote, getting off, end quote, to whenever you do an execution. It's very disturbing. It's a very disturbing game overall, and I wonder, do you think we'll ever see a Manhunt 3 or just another game as dark and twisted as this? Or is this a product of the past that no chance of ever has of coming back in today's time? A Manhunt game nowadays. It's the same thing with Bully. I always said that Bully, I don't know how well it would do nowadays just because of its name. You know, there's a lot more awareness with that type of stuff. I don't know how it would go personally.
Yeah, I don't even know if people would consider it worthwhile revisiting, because you already have some pretty dark games, but they're a full game, so they get away with it. Torture Scene and GTA, some stuff like that. So I don't know if a game based purely on that would. It might just be. It might just call too much attention to itself and make no sense to even be made. Where they're just like, why are we doing this? Like you said with Bully, it calls attention for no real reason, where it's not really crazy. And these days you do have to go nuts or normal. Going in the middle does cause issues, but I don't know if that game's offering anything people would want to even really, really play.
It's messed up, it's twisted, but not in a way that incites me to want to play. I don't know.
Right.
Manhunt's probably my least favorite Rockstar game. I think it's just weird. I don't know. That's just me personally. I get what they were going for, like something dark and disturbing. And so it's interesting that it's a game that exists, but I feel like it's just one of those, like, let's see what happens here. I wouldn't put it past Rockstar to try something more bold, but when it comes to like it as a game, it doesn't to me scream like something that would sell well. They make open world games for a reason now, because they look at the sales.
Yeah.
I think Epic Game Store crashed because so many people downloaded
GTA
5. Yep. So they know what works for them. I wouldn't expect any type of Manhunt game, just because I have not played Manhunt in so long, but that game was just kind of, from the outside looking in, it looks kind of nonsensical darkness, even if it's just designed to be disturbing,
right,
almost for the sake of being disturbing. And I feel like it would have that label immediately attached to it because of what it is. All right. Next entry is from Vault 101 Guy. I just wanted to get clarification on a question I asked last week. Why do you think Spider-Man 2 won't be cross-gen between PS4 and PS5? And then he also has a couple other questions, but we'll start off with that. Why do we think that Spider-Man 2 won't be cross-gen between PS4 and PS5? My reasoning is because we've heard quite a bit that Ratchet & Clank is next from Insomniac. Like, that's in development. And that probably will be a cross PS4, PS5 game. By the time you do see Spider-Man PS4, or I should say Spider-Man PS5, it'll be deep enough into the cycle where they can make it exclusive. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would say that's also, but I think there's also okay, so you can't sell something special and then say, but by the way, you don't need to buy that something special. You can buy something else and it'll be just as special. So they're trying to sell the PS5 as something special. If it is cross-gen, which Sony's already said they don't want to do, even though they have pulled back on that lately, then I don't know what we'll get out of it. Like you said, time frame wise, just looking at their time frame, that's like what, 2024, right? 2023? 2023. Man, that's a long time. Yeah, and they're definitely not embracing any kind of, like, even though they have pulled back admittedly a little bit more, especially with all the issues, they're not embracing as much of a cross-gen or open family as Xbox. So it just feels to me like if they wanted to do it, they'd say, we want to give you a reason to purchase the PS5.
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
Agreed. His next set of questions are: my wife loves watching me play video games right now. I'm unfortunately up AC Odyssey, but unfortunately she can't play because she can't understand how to use the thumbsticks. My question is, what would be a good game for her to try so she can get used to thumbsticks? I'm going to suggest a twin stick shooter. It is, you don't have to know buttons, triggers. You just use the analog stick. So you learn movement and aiming and looking around. That's all it's about. Maybe like an adventure game, kind of, where like a Brothers Tale of Two Sons or whatever, like that style of game where it's just, there's no like you're on the clock, you're just kind of walking sim. You know, maybe What Remains of Edith Finch. Those are ones that come to mind for me.
Yeah, same for me. Telltale. If you can find an IP that the person likes that also is like in a Telltale style, then if they can't figure it out after that, or they probably, it's just not for them. Like that kind of input's not for them.
Yeah, actually, Telltale's a great suggestion though, because when my girlfriend got a Switch, and she had not played in a while, the first game I suggested to her was Batman Telltale, because it's just about the buttons, it's about the analog stick input, and so it helped her just learn what the controller was, and she immediately kind of became a whiz at it after she went from that to Breath of the Wild. So I think that does play a pretty good factor. I would suggest a Telltale game. That'd probably be better than my twin stick shooter.
I always tell people too, if there's a game where you don't have to use the left thumbstick, most people can learn it pretty quick by just understanding how to use the right thumbstick at first. So they're using the right thumb. Don't adjust the camera for a while. Just play around with that right joystick and go, okay, I get that. And then over time, slightly touch the left one. I mean, you can do that with so many games. There's a lot of games where you don't need to just go nuts, and start flinging around the controller.
Last question. When it comes to the next installment of God of War, what would you like to see? Me personally, I would like to see bigger boss fights. I would like to see a more interconnected semi-open world. It felt a lot like Vampire, where you're like, certain areas you can sprint through, but certain areas you have to get on your boat and then wrap around the island to land here, and then you can access this part of the world. And it's like, just connect it all somehow, find a way, because I hate disjointed open worlds more than anything in my life. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I would say
this
the
semi-open
same.
kills me.
Start and stop. See, I'm okay with the semi-open, but I don't like that they did a lot of start and stop with like stop puzzle, stop winch, stop pulley, stop fix rocks, stop because you can feel it. It's always there. So whether it's open world, like, or they just remove some of that,
then you don't have the right things to.
Yeah, or you do, but you just are slowed down until you like do something very trite and very basic to move forward.
Right. Yeah, not too much to ask for from God of War, though. I mean, the entry that they started with was pretty good. So if they're gonna fix one thing, it'd probably be that. Lee Martin writes in, says, question, what do open world games need to start doing differently to continue to succeed? As I think we're starting to see a lot of repetition and just heavy influences from other open world games. I remember Lee being in the chat, and so I think this was inspired by Ghost of Tsushima. So what do you think open worlds need to start doing to really diversify themselves?
Definitely I would like to see them adjust the AI, and so that the AI is much more cognizant of where a person is and what they're doing, and have them move around more. The AI, I'm pretty done with AI that just notices Billy died and then is like, okay, and then goes back, and you're all, but dude, he's dead. Like, even if it just adjusts the walking pattern now. Metal Gear Solid started a tiny bit of this where they would put on helmets if you headshot them too much. You would see them put helmets on, which I thought was primo. I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, putting on more armor. If you light people on fire a bunch of times, like suddenly running into people who were like, making sure, I mean, I don't even know what they could do. Like in Assassin's Creed, grab a bucket of water and throw it on the hay bales. And suddenly you're like, fuck, I can't put that hay bale. I can't light that hay bale on fire right now. I would love to see just snippets of AI, not overarching huge changes, but snippets that are maybe 3 steps instead of 1. It seems like it's pretty much 1. Go find a guy missing, return back to normal. Instead, it should be find a guy missing, do a different thing, adjust the game world a little bit. That would be my big one.
Yeah, for me, it's probably the whole outpost-itis that we see in a lot of games where, you know, like this foreign concept that we've all that we've just all eaten up because it's been in so many games of these people are just standing there practically waiting to be killed. They're just like, you know, they're on a watchtower just staring out into the distance night and day, constantly, 24/7, just there and until you go in and kill them. And I would just like to have more organic open worlds, and if they're going to be location to location, I'm not acting like they're perfect, but I like how older Bethesda game studios handled it, where there were stories in each of these smaller locations, or whether it's environmentally or picking up notes, reading terminals to help build the world. They have to serve a purpose. If I'm going there and just killing them, then it's like Spider-Man. If I'm going there and just kicking ass in each location, you have to give me a large set of tools, which Spider-Man did. It kind of loops back into what we were saying about Ghost of Tsushima. So for me, it depends what your world's trying to doing. If you want to make it a checklist open world, that can be very satisfying, but you have to give me the tools to make it more fun. That's at least my take. I don't think that there's a single solution to it all. I think things like style, like I think of Persona having its very pretty menu. Same thing with Final Fantasy. Things that give it flair, personality, atmosphere, a feel. That type of stuff helps really build your game, even when you're not actually in the game, but just doing things with your characters. That type of stuff is applicable as well. So it's not just one thing. It's about embracing what your game becomes and then making unique mechanics building off of that. And that's not to say, like, what's our version of the tall tower you can climb in Assassin's Creed? Like, no.
Right.
Like find your own way, whether it's through your skill set in game or an objective you complete in the world. That type of stuff makes a difference. Like Horizon Zero Dawn had a really cool twist on the tower thing because you climb these
They were movable,
gigantic fucking creatures, and you're like, what is this thing anyway? But you're scaling them the whole time, and because they're moving, it kind of gives you that like sweaty in your palms feeling. So yeah, I think like that there is a good example of where you can go right with like spinning an idea that already exists. Harris writes in saying, less of a question, more of a reminder to stay hydrated. Talking so much dries the mouth. Thank you, Harris. We will definitely keep that in mind. Sadly, I am out of water. I had a little drop there. Oh, that felt good. All right. Oh, my voice cracked. All right, there we go. Ross, what do you guys hope is added to the Mafia 2 remaster to make it more modern or just fun? Well, we did cover that. Let's talk about this, though. Do the rumors of Mafia 4 being set in Vegas excite you two? Personally, I love games set in deserts, and I hope they add customizable buildings and stuff. Thanks.
He said he likes a game set in a desert. That is so rare. That is so rare.
I was thinking that.
Crazy. Yeah. That's
you
awesome.
Must love New Vegas and Red Dead, and I hate deserts. I really do. New Vegas, my enjoyment for New Vegas when I first played it was chewed up and spit out on the floor because of fucking deserts. Yeah. Same thing with Red Dead. I've come around and I'm over it. But man, when I first started playing both those games, I couldn't get a fucking ounce of enjoyment out of just a desert.
I'm excited to see it. I would be excited to see the Mafia game in Vegas. I think it only makes sense because we got, let's see, you have Scarface 1 and 2. Shut up, dog. Scarface 1 and 2. 2 being very good for the 360, and 2 was, I believe, New York and Vegas. Can't remember if you could go to. You could make your own casino, like you could take them over, but I don't think they were major casinos like they weren't major casinos like Vegas. Right. So I think Vegas, Reno, those make sense. I also do believe you could do a foreign one. Monte Carlo would be amazing because Monte Carlo has like not only, huge amounts of money involved, but race cars. They have like the Monte Carlo circuits and stuff. So you could have some crazy shit with Mafia there. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I think a Vegas Mafia is awesome. I like the idea.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be really cool to see. I think the feel of a Mafia game is similar to that of Fallout. Like it's very, very heavily driven by its atmosphere. And I think the reason you can tie it to Fallout is just because like Fallout has that 50s feeling. Obviously you mentioned the 70s, but we saw how later Mafia games can work in the way of
Mm-hmm.
Mafia 3. Like New Bordeaux was awesome. It was a very diverse open world. It's just the gameplay in there wasn't that fun. It was very repetitive. So for me, I'm excited to see what Hangar 13 can do if they're working on a Mafia 4, because they clearly can get a Mafia story right, and they can make a world interesting and atmospheric and also tackle some very tough subjects. Like, I have no doubt in their abilities. And from what I read, they were very well aware when they shipped the game that the gameplay wasn't that stellar. Like, they just didn't have time to iron it out because they had taken so long in the first place to direct the game in the way they wanted it to go.
Right.
So this was the system they settled on. So I have a feeling that with maybe Definitive Edition, perhaps they're feeling some things out, seeing what works, what doesn't, getting comfortable again working on Mafia when the story's already made. How do we make just good gameplay around this that works in this set of missions? And then from there, you can go into Mafia 4 with this confidence, just because, like I said, a lot of the story's already there and done with.
I don't do a walk in the walk unless I like a game world, and I did one for Mafia 3. Like, and
Mafia 3's world's awesome.
Yeah, Mafia 3's world was good, and like I ended up talking to the devs afterwards and discussing like what I thought was wrong with the game, and I certainly don't remember. I mean, I don't remember having any issues really with him. I mean, he wasn't perfect, but he wasn't a terrible character, and the story wasn't terrible. It was really that gameplay, and so to me, that gameplay, like they could. And they did multiple DLCs. So the best person, I don't talk to him as much. I should reach out to him as GB, one of the guys who used to be on my podcast, because he's a huge Rockstar / like those kind of game fans. And he played the shit out of Mafia 3. I should see how the DLC turned out, because I believe one of those DLCs was actually not bad. Was actually very good.
Yeah, there was one that was good.
There's one that shows like a car going over a bridge or something, and maybe driving across a bridge or jumping. And I remember talking to him, and he was like, "Dude, it's actually made huge leaps in its gameplay." So
yeah, and maybe with the Definitive Edition, that'll get more attention on it because it'll be packaged in instead of like off to the side where most people have already moved on.
True. Yep.
Next set of questions comes in from Great Ape. Do you think modern video streaming platforms are capable of showing off next-gen games in a fairly representative manner? 4K, HDR, 3D audio, 120 FPS gameplay, free sync support, etc. Paragraph break. Will these features be added over time, or are the new systems a problem like VR? Is it hard to show off to people... I'm sorry, I misread that. Will these features be added over time, or are the new systems in a problem like VR? Is hard to show off to people who never played it?
Yeah, it's a good question. Some you can patch in, some you'll never be able to. But I talked about this today, where if somebody's showing you the difference between a 30 and 60 FPS game, and they recorded the footage at 30, guess what? You're not going to see it. And that's one of the biggest problems. If somebody records a 30 FPS game and displays it at 60, they're actually just displaying 2 frames for every one of the same nothing. So you're not seeing that. HDR, you don't see unless you upload to YouTube. Streaming bitrate is fucking horrendous. And dude, this is some of the worst companies in the world who are involved in this. IGN, their bitrate, I think it's great because their bitrate's terrible and it helps me. But their bitrate is like fucking 1 megabyte a second. Like, it is horrendous, where it should be upwards of 70 or 80. So yeah, streaming I think is difficult, but no, they're not. You can show everything other than variable sync. You can show with examples. You can show almost everything. Almost, not everything, but you can show almost everything with some patches to YouTube.
Yeah. I think, I think live reveals are probably not going to be a common thing anymore, unless it's a trailer, because at least in a trailer, it's going so fast. Like, I guess you don't get caught up in how it looks, because you'll probably watch it again or see it again at some point, whether it's promotional on TV or on YouTube on your subscription page or something. I feel like you can get away with that because it moves so fast. Like, it won't be like Ghost of Tsushima where you can stop, take it in a little bit and be like, okay, like I could see this is clearly a good looking game. Question 2 from Great Ape is, what type of pizza do you guys like? Crust, toppings, etc. Fuck.
Holy shit, that sounds good. I am ordering, what is it, Grubhub? I'm ordering food as we speak. Thank you. Who's that?
Great Ape 51.
You rock, man. I went from being completely sated to I'm ordering pizza just
I
from him
heard you
mentioning
typing
it.
as you said that too.
I literally am ordering pizza right now. Like, and oh, by the way, so best, dude, I don't know about you. I normally don't go crazy with pizza.
Okay. Let's hear it.
So it's normally like pepperoni. However, a place nearby, and you might not think this is crazy because you're from the East Coast, West Coast, we're not so into this, but there's a Philly cheesesteak pizza that a place makes here
That's
is
unique.
fucking incredible. So
Ooh,
I would say
sounds good.
pepperoni or maybe that, as long as there's cheese in the title.
All right, so nothing beats a nice plain slice of New York pizza. But if I had to pick a topping, I used to be big on mushrooms. I still am big on mushrooms, but there is a one that I really like, and it's when people put like penne on their pizza, like actual pasta. It's incredibly good, in my opinion. Like they'll put penne alla vodka, except the cheese is in between that vodka sauce and the penne. You don't like that at all. Holy crap.
This sounds fucking disgusting, man. It's making me now not want to order food. It's like I just get an idea of somebody out with a pepperoni pizza throwing like a fucking spaghetti, like a handful of spaghetti noodles on it, man. Is that really? It's just noodles, like
Not noodles, like a penne, like a tube almost, you know, a macaroni. No, that's not the right word.
Dude, no, I know what you mean now. I know. Yeah, that's not for me. That's not. Wow, really. So is this new? Where you just heard about this recently and tried it?
Like 6 years ago. That was the first time
No
I tried
shit.
it. It's not my go-to, but it's pretty damn good. And like you can get like
Interesting.
chicken bacon ranch pizza, or yes, that's what it is. And oh my god, that's really good. Yeah, just like you could throw anything on pizza and I'll eat that shit up.
Yeah, me too. I'm
Except
a big
pineapples.
pizza fan.
Sorry.
So you don't like pepperoni or Canadian bacon and pineapple?
No, I'm all right. Are you a crust guy? Do you eat your crust, or do you just leave the shreds?
Oh no, I
on
do.
your
I'm not
plate?
a fucking animal, dude. I'm not a wasteful. I'll eat it all, but I definitely like thick. I like Pizza Hut style deep dish. I like it when it's golden and when your stomach can't get enough water to eject oil. Like when you eat it, it's grease. I don't want grease on the top. I dab my pizza if there's too. Like Pizza Hut, sometimes I'll have much grease.
Okay, I get judged for doing that. I take a napkin to my pizza and I'm like, all right, we're gonna
Fuck
pat this
that,
out.
man. Yeah, I'm not a heathen.
I feel sick sometimes when I have too much of that oil.
And I'm a grease freak. Like I have no issues, but if it's liquid, that shit's like your body's water, man. Like when that hits your bowels are gonna be like, dude, I digest water, not full fucking oil. Like something's going out of your butt. Now, man, I dab it, and even Pizza Hut, which I adore, even though it's a crap pizza, I will dab it to make sure like the pizza, if you get pepperoni that's like a cup, I don't want that cup having anything like liquid in it. Like I need that to be somewhat not dry, but not wet. Yeah. Pizza Hut or pepperoni is so good, dude. It's so cool because pepperoni is generic, but when it's done right on a pizza, it's just a perfect thing.
It can rob the joy of a pizza, in my opinion, though, because you can easily get something that's way too hot. And I'm not a big spicy guy, but like for me,
gotcha.
I like a slight tinge for my pepperoni, like because they can be flavorful and like ooh, a little fire here, but like this sometimes can be the one that just takes your breath away. You're like, Jesus Christ, what'd they do to this thing? Which I've definitely had before, and it's not enjoyable.
So that must be an East Coast thing, because we don't put our pepperoni is spiced meat, but it's not spicy meat, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, so I like a spiced meat. Yeah, I'm with you. Like a spiced meat, but I've had pepperoni pizza where it's like, what the fuck is this? Like just
like ghost pepper or something.
Yeah. Maybe a little less than that, but yeah, it like really just takes your breath away, and you're like, God Almighty. I do also eat my crust. Yeah, I like, for me, I used to not have my crust, and then I would realize I'm eating all the cheese off this, and I'm just like throwing I hit the mic, sorry, but I'm like just throwing my crust off onto my plate, and I'm like, that's like the bread. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. How do you eat your pizza? Do you feed it in flat? Do you fold it? Are you a folder?
No, I don't fold it. I just eat it tip first. Yeah. I I've seen people do some crazy fancy shit, and one of my friends, if I'm in a rush to like go box or whatever, and I need 2 pieces of pizza, I've occasionally put them like a sandwich, but I don't like it. I like to eat it, and I know how it's going to like be eaten, because another thing that we get is somebody will be like, dude, I want 25 toppings on my pizza. Fucking ridiculous, because the pizza's unedible at that point. You have shit, flying off your face. I like it to be fairly easy bite, so it's easy to eat without looking like an idiot.
Yeah, I always get roasted for eating it flat. Like, I'm not a folder. Like, I don't grab both ends and close it together and take a bite, because then you start to pull from both sides on the edge of the pizza, and then your cheese comes off. And it's like, I just think it's the biggest fucking waste.
That's so weird. I mean, what's weird is this must be an East Coast thing, highfalutin, because over here, I don't think I've ever seen anybody eat pizza other than
this is a New York thing.
They might do a thing. I don't know how to describe this, but they grab a single piece and they might crook it slightly in their hand so it's a little bit curved.
Yeah, like a little
but
bit.
But they still eat the triangle first. Like they start with the point. They don't fold anything ever. Yeah. I don't know anybody who folds. We do dip it though. I mean, if there's like. I like blue cheese. I'm weird like that. I know some people hate blue cheese.
But
for some pizzas, I'll dip a tiny bit of blue cheese, or dip it a tiny bit in blue cheese, depending on the pizza.
Ranch can be good.
Ranch can be good. I will admit, you were talking about spice. I don't ever want spices that I can't control. So if I order food, I want it unhot, but then I will add Tapatio if I want, or I have chili, salt or whatever, that I can sprinkle on. I don't want it added because I think a lot of times you can't control it. So you could have an entire pizza ruined if it's way too hot, because you're just like, well, I can't eat, it's ghost pepper. I can't eat this shit.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Great question.
Yeah, good question. We broke out and that was a full-on pizza discussion.
I know, right? Last set of questions come from Droop Snoot. Let's fire through them. Number 1, it sounds like Obsidian is working on a big AAA title. Xbox even mentioned that they will be showing off something during the July event. What do you think it is? A new IP? If they do show it off, it'll either be the Outer Worlds DLC, but if they show off their next game, yes, it's a new IP. That's what I've heard. I will not say more than that because, it's not really confirmed what it is, but I have an idea of what it is, but it should be a new IP. I would have your expectations there.
Yeah, I don't know anything about what they're showing or what they would possibly show. I'm really...
It'll be way too early to show, in my opinion, based off what I heard.
If it's a new one, if it's the new one,
their new IP, I think it's way too early because they just released the Outer Worlds, and they're not like a big studio with a
and the DLC is just out, right? Or coming out, right?
They haven't even announced when it's coming. They haven't shown anything off.
Yeah, so I have a feeling it's in the that first phase. Right now.
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely in like a pre-production phase, but I think it's because Microsoft, when they had that Inside Xbox last year, and the first thing they showed off from Obsidian after acquiring them was, they're making Grounded. So I think Xbox is trying to clean up a bit of a slight confusion there and have people willing to buy into their future, being like, look, Obsidian's making this, and In Exile's making this, and so on and so forth. I think everyone's going to be participating just so that there's a roadmap, a set of expectations, and also like consumers can buy into the future a little more comfortably. I think if Obsidian had the call at all, they probably aren't showing this game off. Number 2, who, in your opinion, is the most accomplished developer of this past generation?
I absolutely have an answer. You'll know the games, but you may not know who I'm talking about. But without a shadow of a fucking doubt, Playway. So Playway does the simulator games, mechanic simulator, farming simulator.
That's a really good answer. Yeah.
Drug dealer simulator recently. They do. It's every time I go to Steam and I look at Playway, I am stunned. And in fact, we're probably going to find out it's some kind of like scam or Chinese, sweatshop. But the number of titles they have, House Flipper is so fun, Maddie. It's the dumbest game in the world. It's literally what they do on TV shows. You buy a shitty house, you barely repair it, and you try to sell it for as much as you can. And they have made that game so fun that I've spent 25 or 30 hours in a $14 game just buying crappy houses. Yep. Thief Simulator is amazing, by the way, where you're a thief sneaking into people's houses, using the dark web, talking to other people about how to crack people's security. So Playway, without any doubt. It's
Really
insane.
interesting.
He didn't
choice.
say good though, right? He said
most accomplished developer of this past gen. So I don't think that means like sales or even reviews. It's just kind of like, what have they accomplished? What have they done? As a team?
then it's them for me. Yeah, if that's what he means.
Yeah, because if I were to pick like based off like recognition and reputation, I'd probably go with like Rockstar, CD Projekt Red, the obvious ones. I think if I were to make a selection personally on someone who I think's been very accomplished in this last generation, I would like to say Platinum Games. I feel they've shown their flexibility and their, more importantly, ability to learn. I think they weren't at the top of their game at the beginning of this generation, and I think now they currently are at the top of their game, and they deserve it because they've listened closely to feedback between Astral Chain and Nier Automata. They've shown that they can help tell a really good story. I know Yoko Taro was kind of at the head of Nier, but Astral Chain shows that they can make their own story, and it can make sense, and it can be good. So I would probably go with them because they've always maintained their identity of interesting, fun, flashy combat. I really just think Astral Chain was sort of the icing on the cake because it really is, I think, Platinum Games' best combat for sure, hands down. It has a lot of depth. It's not just a button masher. It's not just all show, but it does still have that flair, and it shows that they've learned a lot from working with Yoko Taro and his team because their storytelling ability became immediately better when they finished Nier and moved to that project.
Right.
Number 3, and our last question of the day. If you had to choose one genre to be the next fad like Battle Royales, what would it be? Well, isn't a new fad something that's kind of like it pops up, it's new, it's not heard of yet? Like Battle Royale wasn't a thing. Well, it technically was a thing for a while, but everything is a thing, isn't it?
But I got to tell you though, if you had asked me about Battle Royale, I mean, I because it was such a Steam rip-off kind of game, like it felt not a lot of work was being done, because Battle Royale, there's not a lot of work. It's like, here's a map, then you do everything. Like, we're just gonna throw some weapons down. I'm trying to think of another fad. What would be like? You're right though, everything's a thing now. Like simulator games are a thing, which is weird. Like, you can simulate being a farmer, which is mind-blowing when you like talk about a boring game, right? But people love them, and it is tough because there's not really open racing games like Forza Horizon, which I would not have thought would have been like the idea of challenging online other people where you're just driving on a car in an open world. Dude, I don't know. Is there? Like, is there anything? By the way, I forgot to say, amazing bandana. I love the fucking... Oh. I love the, like, peace, love, like, cosmos look of that bandana. Because it's a moon.
Sweatshirt.
It's a moon, right? Oh, gotcha. It's Star Wars.
Well, yeah,
okay,
it's all space themed, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just been wearing it to keep my hair out of my eyes. Like, I have 3 others that I've just been wearing. I'm trying to think, though. I don't think I have an answer for this question just because of the fact that I feel a fad kind of rises out of nowhere as something that wasn't previously popular. And I feel like, fighting games are popular. Action-adventure games are popular. Open-world games are popular. Like...
Okay.
Horde mode, maybe? I feel like that was a thing that was very popular.
I think you hit the mark I would go with, which is I do believe somebody's going to figure out a way to sort of go. What's the Ubisoft game where you can be a warrior or a samurai or a
For
Honor, but with a shit ton of people, like a battle royale. But see, even though this has already been done, but I was going to say I honestly could see a martial arts like battle royale where you have like
has
50...
that really already been done?
Yeah, but it's already been done. Damn.
Wow.
Man, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be anything. I mean, my golden idea for a game was always, with this Battle Royale craze when it was at its peak, I was like, imagine if they did it like a MOBA. You start off at level 1 as you loot you destroy resources, you collect things, you kill enemies.
Oh, right.
You get levels, and based off the class you picked, you unlock just like a MOBA. You get your abilities, you rank up those abilities. So the longer you survive, the better chance you have of getting to the end. But you're also going to meet other players who had that XP up and those abilities up. But the difference is I think it would have a little more balance, because you can't just camp all the way, because if you're camping and you're not collecting things and you're not doing things and engaging, you're not going to be leveling up. So it kind of pushes people towards each other to play and to be out in the open, while also having a progression system tied to it. I feel like that could be a fad. That'd be my prediction.
Yeah, that could be.
Anyway, that's our final question of the episode, Karak. Well done, my friend. The weekend is here, and we hope you all enjoyed. Yeah, really. I feel like I say it like it's weird when I wake up on a Friday, because I'm like, man, it's already been a week.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The show.
It's crazy.
This week in particular, it flew by. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you all enjoyed another episode of the H.A.M Radio Podcast. We will be back again next week. If you want to once again sign up for early access, we're available on Patreon for just $1. That'll be linked in the description down below. Karak has one as well. Please do check that out. But Karak, we're going to pick out our hashtag, but any closing thoughts?
Well, you said fad a ton of times. I was like, do we just call it, like fad? That doesn't really hit it. It doesn't hit the mark. Fad? Yeah, you know what? Oh, we could call it I said I'm not a fucking heathen. I said I'm not an animal. We said fold. We said what were some of the crazy shit people do? Fold, put it in a sandwich, like
pineapples.
Pineapple. Yeah. You could say hashtag no pineapple. You can do that. Let's do that. Yeah, that works. That works for me.
You got this far, even if you believe in pineapple pizza, you got to let us know. So
yeah,
tag us with that. We've had a lot of people tag us last week, so we appreciate you guys who listen this far into the show. And I know, like, for me, when I start to get to this like ass end of the podcast, I do tab off. So we do appreciate those of you who literally listen to the last moment when it's all up, because it means a lot, and hopefully the hashtags are rewarding, and we take great joy in seeing you guys going the whole distance there.
Yeah, for sure.
But with that, it's time for us to wrap it up. We hope you enjoyed once more, and we will see you guys next week.
Peace out.